Callie Finn, happy WNBA Monday. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm happy. It's Monday and I get to see you, my girl. But I'm really happy that you're here with me today, Callie, because I was tuned in last night to Aces versus Mercury. And going into that game, I mean, obviously, anytime the Las Vegas Aces are going to have to play a game without A'ja Wilson, you worry about them. And it's almost actually maybe a little insulting because A'ja Wilson plays next to some very, very good players, and Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray. And Jewel Lloyd now, who is a part of their new core four. But it's still like, my goodness, you're missing A'ja Wilson, you know? And so that's a big deal. And they were going up against the Phoenix Mercury, who were getting Kahleah Copper back because she was out due to injury on limited minutes. And so the Phoenix Mercury so far have been a very good team. They've been dealing with some injuries, and even despite that, they found ways to win some of those games without their engine, Alyssa Thomas. But now they have their big three back, you know, and that's Alyssa Thomas, Sachu Sablé, and Kahleah Copper. And so I was like, man, it's a tough time for Ka to be coming back with A'ja out. So you were there at the game. The Aces, I thought, hung in there. They had a lot of turnovers, Callie, and that probably is what really did them in. It's hard to really penalize the Aces so much right now, missing A'ja Wilson, but they've sort of been up and down all season without A'ja Wilson, and their schedule over the next 3 games will be tough. I don't know yet at this point in time on Monday if you have any insight on whether A'ja is going to be back. She's in concussion protocols right now. So if she'll be back for their next game tomorrow, Tuesday, which is on the road versus the Minnesota Lynx. But, you know, they fell last night in this game. Like I said, I'm not holding it too much against them because they were without A'ja Wilson. But the turnovers were concerning, especially when Chelsea Gray is your point guard. And she had 5 of them. Was it 22 total?
22 total turnovers, yes.
That's a lot of turnovers. Like you're not going to usually win a game against a team like you're not going to win many games against any team with 22 turnovers, but against the Phoenix Mercury, they're one of the top defenses in the league. You have Alyssa Thomas over there on the other side. It's going to be really hard, Callie.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way to look at it is like 22 turnovers is the amount of total assists that the Mercury had, whereas like the Aces only had 14 assists. That's not a good ratio. 14 to 22 turnovers, like that's definitely not the type of like ball security that you need to see. But in terms of the question that you asked about Asia's availability, I've been told that it's pretty unlikely. At this point, I'm told she's still even like walking around in sunglasses and that type of thing, which is an indication that the symptoms of the concussion are still present, right? You know, like if you're being irritated by light and things like that. So traveling probably wouldn't even be the best thing for A'ja at this point. I'd be surprised if she makes the trip, but anything is possible. I mean, we know that A'ja is like really hungry to like be there for her team. That's why she was like watching from a box, which I think was a wild thing to do because games are loud and bright. But I mean, I think that goes to show just how much, you know, she really cares and like wants to be there. But I'm thinking, especially against the Lynx, um, that's probably not the game to like, you know, force her back into because it's going to be a tough one, like you said.
Of course, and I'm right now like sending all the prayers to A'ja Wilson. We just want to see her back healthy and on the court. But at the end of the day, you know, like the Lynx had to play this season without Napheesa Collier. Granted, it was not against a team like them on the other side, but they had to play without Napheesa Collier. The Liberty have had to play without John Cole Jones. So the Aces are going to have to probably play some more games without A'ja Wilson. And so with that being said, you know, I want to just give a little love, though, to the Phoenix Mercury because they were a team that people questioned coming into this season. And we're like, oh, I don't know, and will they be good, and blah, 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 and too many threes, and the system, and whatever. All the things people were saying. And to me right now, this week, they are going to drop to number 4 in my power rankings. But to me right now, it's like, is it Dream or Phoenix? Like, to me, they are like the two teams battling for, like, who's third. But they're like third and fourth to me. it like can change. And like to me, they've set themselves up as like after the Liberty and Lynx, whichever order you put them in, it's like the Dream and Mercury. The Mercury are a very good team, and you have to respect them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think that, that's something I was thinking about entering this game. Like the Mercury have made strides from what people's expectations. I think part of that is just like, you have new pieces and people are curious how they're gonna fit. And so, but the Mercury, I mean, like you said, they've looked fantastic. So it's like watching the Aces lose by the margin that they did. It wasn't like a blowout per se. Like they were within 2 points in like the final minute or so. Like it could have gone either way, but I think that maybe it's like you can't, like you said, penalize the Aces too much because of a loss like this, because the Mercury are so good and the Aces are missing their three-time MVP. Becky Hammon said in the post game, she was like, we're without 25 points and 12 rebounds. So we got to get creative. We've got to do it by committee. They definitely did not do that against the Mercury. They didn't get very many points from their bench. Their like most impactful minutes from reserve player were from Kirsten Bell, who had 8 points and like kind of some clutch like energy
That's
energy
kind of,
play.
I think that's kind of a welcome surprise though, right? For the maybe
Yeah.
not to Becky Hammon, because she's like, look, we see her do this in practice, but to fans and people, that might be a surprise to see Belle doing what she did.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I think, you mentioned that Becky said that, we see this from her all the time. My question was kind of like, how do you replicate that? And Becky was like giving her more opportunity, probably, and she'll have more opportunities going forward. I mean, that's kind of just like necessity at this point. They also tried out Joyner Holmes, who they had signed just like a few days ago. And that looked a little bit rough, which is understandable, I guess, since she's brand new to the team. But they really, I mean, they desperately need some like size. They have this like great group of guards, but then if you look in the post, their options are not ideal right now. Obviously, you can count on center Kia Stokes for rebounds and some like defensive things, but she's not an offensive threat. And this is something that Becky Hammon has talked about. Like there will teams that will just not guard her, and then it forces the Aces to be playing with extra defenders on the
Right. They're
players
playing
that
4 and 5. They're playing 4 and 5 on
exactly
offense, and
exactly.
that
And so I
makes it
think
very
that
hard.
yeah, and I think that makes it very difficult. Then if you look down the list, it's other than Kia, it's Liz Kitley who is just new and I think still finding her legs. She's only in her second year in the league.
But her first year
So
playing, so she's really like a rookie.
exactly, exactly. I mean, I want to give her the benefit of the doubt of that last year because she was at least around the team. Like she was able to kind of like take in so much of like, what they are trying to accomplish and all these things. She was able to, I'm sure, build chemistry with a lot of these players because she was around, just not able to like participate in practices and things like that. But you're right. I mean, she essentially is a rookie. And so without Megan Gustafson, who's out with injury, and Cheyenne Parker-Tyus, who's preparing to give birth, that part is difficult. And I think that's a huge aspect of the Aces struggles right now.
Yeah, I mean, their next 3 games, it's at Minnesota, so that's their next game, and then they have the Fever coming to town, and I can't remember what the other game is, but the schedule is not. It's going to be a challenge. I mean, those would be difficult games for the Aces, even with Asia Wilson, because they're good teams. But if they have to face any more of these games without her, they really risk like falling potentially a few games before 500. With the loss last night, they fell to 500. And so are the Aces capable of turning it around? If you have a player like Asia Wilson, and I'm going to say yes. And also, like, I'm just going to always give them the respect as 2-time champions and Becky Hammon as that kind of coach. But the thing is, even if you turn it around, if you lose too many games, you risk, if you make it into the postseason, having to face a team like the Liberty or the Lynx in the first round. And I don't think that's what you want to do unless you're on an incredible heater going into, the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean that's something that I definitely thought about. They're 5-5 through 10 games. This is exactly where they were last year, 5-5 through 10 games. And so my thought is like, okay, what has to happen for maybe like the next 10 games? And Chelsea Gray was like, we can't even look that far ahead. I
I
don't know if
heard
that's an
that.
answer that instills confidence per se, but I mean it's real. They really can't. They have to like focus on little small things. They keep on talking about maintaining small habits and things like that. And it sounds like annoying, but it really is the truth, especially when you're looking at turnovers and issues on defense. Like these are things that come down to like the small habits that you're making every day, like the efforts that you're putting into like making the right reads, all those things. Like those come down to habits. And so I think that maybe Chelsea's inclination to not look that far ahead into the season isn't the wrong one. I mean, I know, just after those first few games of the season, Becky Hammond was saying like, my expectations haven't changed, and they had barely won their season opener to the Mystics. They've been blown out to the Liberty. They were blown out by the Storm, and she was like, I know that this is a championship group still, but we just
I
cannot
agree with
neglect.
her.
Yeah, and I do I think a lot of people maybe don't, and I would understand maybe there being some doubt. I think if you're watching this team and you're concerned and you're not sure if they have like a championship caliber, that makes sense to me. I think because even with Asia on the court, there are other issues, right? Like they seemed to move the ball a little bit better in their first game without her. I think communication was at like an all-time high
Yeah.
on the floor. But then even
It was
that
sticking a
was
lot last night or yesterday.
exactly, exactly. So it's like they fall back to that, but then I think also with Asia on the floor, there seems to be this almost like complacency. I don't know if that's the right term. I'm not trying to critique anybody's efforts, but it is something that Becky Hammon spoke about. Like, she can't coach effort. She can control maybe play time, but it does feel like when you have Asia on the court, maybe it's like, okay, best player in the world, three-time MVP, let's just get her the ball. That could also add to like overthinking. I
I
think
mean, it's
so.
interesting, Callie, though, because I don't sometimes think they get Asia Wilson the ball enough. So that's why, I feel like there's this thing that people do with the aces where, like, when they're not playing well or they're struggling, people are just like, oh, they need a bench. They don't have any depth. Da, da, da. And it just feels like this canned answer that people say. I say that because, like, the Aces in the 2 years that they won also did not have like great depth. It's been the thing that people have criticized about them the whole time, right? And they still won 2 championships. So I'm not saying that they don't need it. That's not the point I'm making. What I'm saying is not having that depth shouldn't make them look this bad, because we've seen them not have depth for several years and it look better than this, right? And some people will say, okay, well, they had Alicia Clark. Okay, they did. I'm not saying that they didn't have any, but I'm just saying, like, it's always been about their core four largely, and they've had like some key contributors, but it's been about their core four. And I don't think the core four are playing to their level, in my opinion. Because if they were, some of these games wouldn't look the way they look. They wouldn't be barely beating the Mystics, who are down Brittany Sykes, right? And so people wouldn't be as concerned. If they were winning the games they were supposed to and they were like in competitive games, the temperature would not be as high. I don't believe after 2 years of winning championships and making it to the semis last year that you no longer are, like, you cannot convince me that they are a 500 eighth place team with Asia Wilson in her prime, with Jackie Young in her prime, and Chelsea and Jewel Lloyd only being 33 and 31, if I got the ages right. I mean, that's like the second half of your prime, but it's not the end of your prime.
Yeah, to be clear, that's not a point that I would make. I would not say that like the Aces are hampered by the lack of a bench. I mean, you're absolutely correct in saying that like, you look at their 2 championship teams and their bench situation wasn't looking much different. I mean, I think now I will say, and this is something that this quote I don't think has like hit the internet or anything, but a few like games ago at shoot around, Becky Hammond was like, okay, I will be honest, we did miss some or lose some juice pieces. Those pieces being like Tiffany Hayes, Alicia Clark, like those are people that come into the game and bring like a spark. And you do need that. So I'm not saying that like their bench is not capable of that. I think Aaliyah Nye is like the answer though. Like and as long as she continues to go, to me, she looks better at every single game. I've been at practices and
You can see it.
she looks so strong at practice. And each game she looks a little bit better to me. So I think that like she to me is like the answer. She's like the 3 and D threat that Alicia Clark, offered when she was with the Aces. But they do need somebody to kind of replicate that Tiffany Hayes like spark and like aggression off the bench. And I think that a lot of us were looking at Tiffany Mitchell to do that. She got her first start with the Aces in that last game against the Mercury. And like you see flashes of it. That's definitely why Becky Hammond gave her the start. But maybe not enough. So I'm definitely not gonna say like, they can't win because they just don't have a bench. Like, no, that's not the answer. And you're right, that is kind of like a canned response. But they do need like a little bit more from their bench, I would say. But you're right. Like I mean, right now I guess we just have to talk about the core three because Asia's not playing, but Jackie, Chelsea, and Jewel, like it's on them. Even though the Chelsea had 20 points and 10 rebounds, which is double double. Again, we talked about the turnovers, but even like 20 points, she can score 30. Like we've seen it, and like so can Jackie, so can Jewel. So it's like you need them,
And they need to make their
do that.
shots. I mean, they need to
Yeah.
stop forcing themselves into tough shots, but they need to make their shots, right? And I mean, some of that's going to come with moving the ball, but like Jackie the other day called her 3-point shot temporarily broken. They are not. Asia Wilson is shooting under 50% for the first time in 3 years. And she, like, look, I get it. She's getting double, tripled out there. But, like, that was also happening to her last year, and she was still shooting over 50%, which is part of why we were like, this woman is amazing, and she's the unanimous MVP. But they have to play to their levels because of the way their roster is constructed. I mean, they don't have a choice. But what I'm saying is when they play to their levels, they don't look how they look now. And so part of it to me starts with their core four. It starts with that core four. And I don't really know what else to say about that, but I am not yet at the point where everyone else is, where I'm ready to say that this team is like fake and they're not contenders. And like I don't think that they right now are on the level of the Liberty of the Lynx. So don't get me wrong, Callie. That's not what I'm saying. The way that people are talking about them and the way that we're behaving, because I really find it disrespectful to the people around her. These are all WNBA players. These are all stars. These are Olympians. Asia Wilson is not surrounded by scrubs. Like many teams right now would beg and die and love to have the talent that's around her. So I just don't feel like we can make it like, oh, Asia has no help. And I just don't think that's a fair assessment. I don't think it's accurate. And I think it's okay to say, as much as even Asia is doing right now, like she needs to do more. Like that's what you have to do when you're the star player. And the others also have to step up. They need to make their shots. They need to do what they normally do, really. They need to play to their levels. That's where I
Yeah.
land.
I think sometimes, and I could be wrong, but I feel like when people are saying like they need to get Asia some help, I don't think they mean like on the bench or like with
They mean in the front court.
they mean in the front court, which is true, which is true. And I think if you look at the off season and like how that unfolded, and a lot of people don't talk about this, but like we do know that the front office did try to pursue like Brittany Griner, like some big like big names in the front court and just were unsuccessful. And
Right.
so I think that that's one part. I don't think it's fair to just like chalk it up to front office negligence and they're just like, oh, we're just gonna leave Asia out there to dry. Like I wouldn't say that that was the approach, but I do think that when people say that that she does need some help in the front court, it's not incorrect. Like that
It,
to me is full stop
it's
is true.
it's a very correct statement. And look, they brought Cheyenne Parker-Tyus. Like, we understand that she's pregnant, and so that help may not come till later this season, and it may not really come until next season, assuming she's still with the Aces, and that Asia's still there and everyone's still there. We know this is going to be an interesting offseason.
Right.
But that being said, and I'm not saying it's okay, and I'm not saying it's fair to Asia, you've been playing without a lack of offensive threat this is not the first season you've had to do it. That's really my point. And you've performed at a level that allowed your team. And so you're going to have to keep doing that. And that's really sort of my point. I'm not saying that it's fair and that she doesn't need it, but what I'm saying is you got to do what you've always done, right? You got to be an efficient scorer, and you probably got to get more like 25, not 20, which is around where she is right now. And Jackie, we need you to find your 3-point shot, but like if you can't, then you got to be aggressive and you got to attack. And Chelsea Gray, your assists need to probably come up some, and you need to move that rock around. And Jewel Lloyd, we need you to refine your confidence, and it looks like she is. She's shooting the 3 ball great. You need that 2 to come up, but you just need these players to play to their level that we know that they're capable of. And I think that is not going to fix everything, but it's going to help a lot. And the effort thing is real because that's on defense. And Becky's right. Defense is largely effort. And so if the championship hangover got y'all not wanting to play defense, if you're frustrated, whatever it is, until you play defense, which has always been what makes a lot of the Aces offense, right? Like you need to get some easy buckets in transition. Right now, if you're taking everything out of the net, it's so hard. And that's why you have like all these hard shots and Chelsea Gray's dribbling and, you know, it's all this isolation and the ball isn't moving. Like I don't recognize this team. So they need to get back to fundamentals. And I mean, that's largely been what my observation is of the Aces right now. That other team is the Storm that they're going to be playing. So we'll see what happens. I do think the Storm and Fever are winnable games without A'ja Wilson. I don't think it will be easy. I'm not saying that it will happen, but they're at home.
Yeah.
We saw how they just played against the Mercury. We remember last year when A'ja was out, how they played the Liberty without A'ja. So this team is capable of stepping up and playing well without A'ja. They can't afford to lose 3 games in a row if she's not back. So they're going to have to dig deep, but I agree with you on Nye. I also thought Dana Evans was really good in the minutes that she had last night. She was attacking, getting in the paint. I think whatever Becky has to do, but I haven't given up on the Aces yet, Callie.
Well, they have your vote of confidence, so that's always good.
I mean, I have them 8th in my ranking, so I'm not trying to pretend like I'm just saying I think it's a little too premature to be like, oh, break up the Aces and you know, all that stuff. All right, Callie, as always, thank you for joining. I appreciate you. The best person to talk to when discussing the Aces. People join us for the WNBA on NBC. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is where you're going to get all things WNBA on NBC Sports. Thanks.